Okay, we're going to measure around the kitty's necks so I can show you how to make collars, kitty collars. This is Marina. She's a very nice kitty. You don't want them to be too tight, the collars. So Marina's neck actually measures at 9, but I don't want it to be too tight for her. I want to be able to slide, I want to slide 3 fingers easily there. So I'm going to give her extra room. She's not an active cat. She's a senior kitty, so she's not going to be getting this stuck on a, she's not going to be getting stuck on a tree branch or anything. So I can get my fingers in there. That's not going to choke her or anything. So for Mo, I think I'm going to make hers at 10 inches. There you go. Put her old collar back on. And for Tickles, Tickles is a smaller cat. She weighs about half of what Mo does. She's coming in at about 8 inches. Maybe 7.5, but again, I want to be able to fit in 3 fingers. Yeah. So I'm going to make hers at 9 inches, because that would be good and comfortable for her. Don't get up. You can go back to sleep. I'm sorry. Did I wake you? They come in different sizes. I usually get these at a Michael's or a Walmart's. They come in different colors if you can find them. They're usually in the sewing notions area. Sometimes they're in the crafts section or the jewelry section near where they sell cord for making friendship bracelets. They have slots on either side of the clip that the ribbon goes around. Sometimes they only have 1 slot, sometimes they have 2. I usually figure out when I'm making the collar how to wrap around them. Another good thing to have is some buttons for your cat collar. Those will hold the 2 layers together. I have a variety of vintage buttons, but even just a regular plain 2-holer button would work just as well. You can use any kind of ribbon for your cat collar. One material that I've really grown to like for my cats, though, is printed elastic, or otherwise known as fold-over elastic. My cats are not active, but this, if a cat were to get caught on something, he or she could just slip out of it because it really stretches well. I tend to make the collars out of this. There's so many designs. There's so many different designs that you can find at the craft stores or online. So the first step is cutting the elastic or ribbon, and I'm going to make a 4th of July collar for Mo. Her neck, I wanted to give her 10 inches around. So I'm going to double that, because in the collar the fabric's going to double back like that. And I'm going to add 1 inch for sewing the seams together. You don't really need the full inch, but it makes it easy during the sewing so that you can have something to hold on to. And after you're done sewing the seam, you can just cut it closer if you want, or leave it as if you don't want it. So Marina's neck measurement is 10. I'm going to double that to make 20, and then I'm going to add 1 inch for the seam. So I'm going to cut this piece of elastic to 21 inches. And of course, I don't want Tickles to be sad without her 4th of July collar. So I'm going to cut one for her. Her neck measurement was 9. So to double that, that would make it 18. Add 1 inch for the seam. I'm going to make hers 19 inches. If you are concerned that the elastic or ribbon that you're going to be using for your cat collar might fray, there are 2 methods of preventing that from happening. First method is to take a match, or a lighter if you have it, and just lightly run it alongside the edge that you're concerned about fraying. And, excuse me, and now that's tight. So the second method is good for a ribbon like this, where you've got strands, large strands, you've got sequins, you've got a lot happening here. And if I tried to cauterize that, it wouldn't burn evenly if I used a lighter or a match on this. So in this case, I would glue it. I put some glue on the end. I'm using fabric glue on a piece of parchment paper so that it will release easily after it's dry. If you're in a hurry, you could use hot glue, but it would be very stiff afterwards, and you'd have to kind of push the glue in there to get everything. Let's see. My glue tip is clogged, so I'm just going to take the top off here. And I use this glue a lot, so I'm just, in this case, I'm just dipping it in there, which might be a good method even if your nozzle isn't. So this is transparent. The town that I live in used to have a lot of plastic factories, and one of the things that they would make is buttons. So these are some of the plastic buttons that were made in Leominster, Massachusetts. About 20 years ago, at a yard sale, these young ladies were selling this big box of buttons. It was 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet, so there were, thousands of buttons in this big box, this overflowing box. But their grandfather had worked at the button factory, and he didn't have the heart to throw away some of these buttons that were considered not perfect. So over the last 20 years or so, I've given a lot of these away to schools and churches, but I have a few left. And I picked out some that would be red, white, and blue to go with Moe's and Tickle's collars. This is the buckle that I want to use for one of them, and the blues don't quite match, so I'm going to take that out. But and this is a dog button. That probably wouldn't be good for a cat collar. So to do this, you take your buckle, and it's a side release buckle. It's a side release buckle, so it's pretty easy. And before you sew it together, you're going to put it onto the buckle. Everything's straight and not twisted. Then you bring your other one over, and these two, this is where you're going to put your seam, but you want your seams to be facing. So you just hold them there like that and twist them around. I've already have over here, I have a needle that's threaded, double threaded, and has a knot at the bottom. And you just push it up there. And I have a lot of ample end here because I added an inch, and that just makes it easier. In this case, I'm using the folded over elastic, so it doesn't slip around as much as maybe a ribbon would, but it does make it easier, and I'll just trim it down later if I want. So you're just going to put a knot through there. If you want, you can make tiny stitches back and forth, but across this here, like if you want to do little stitches across, I'm just doing a few stitches right through the middle. I'm using a longer thread than I need to, but that's because that way I won't have to rethread another needle, and I tend to do what's ever easiest. All right, not the best job. So now you've got it sewn together, and if you check, see like that, and you've pretty much already formed the collar, but you still have this area over here, and I am going to just trim that off a little bit. So I am just going to trim that off a little bit. I'm going to do this again with the other collar, so you don't have to resort to slow-mo or anything. So I just brought up the inside in there. It doesn't matter if I did it exactly because it's going to even itself out anyway. I am trying to get it in the back because that's where I like it. Personally, I like to have the button across from the buckle. You can do whatever you want, though. Your cat might prefer it a different way. So this doesn't really show up, but all right. I'm not going to be all matchy-matchy. Not going to be all matchy-matchy. I'm going to go with the white heart, which I was thinking sentimentally would be perfect for Mo. Doesn't show up enough, so I'm going to go with the blue button, even though the blue doesn't really match the navy. So here's one finished collar. If you have a slippery ribbon, then you can go through and put a little stitch here, or so little buttons along it to hold the two layers together. It's not really an issue with my cats when I'm using these fold-over elastics, these printed elastics. So here are the two collars that I made for my kitties. I'm going to have another video after this on how to make a no-sew bracelet using pretty much the same method that I just did for the kitty collars. While I was figuring out different ways how I could do this to make a cat collar, I tried a bunch of different things, and there are a few things that I wouldn't advise to do if you had a cat. But if it was a human bracelet, it would be okay. So I'm going to just do another video for that in case you have any leftover ribbon.